Hi, I'm Ryder Hask, and this is the People's TV Podcast.
We delivered really heavy content to people through the television, through their laptops every single day. And I wanted to make sure that we as communities and schools were right in that landscape. So we had those hard conversations about race and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what it means to serve a population of students who are Black and brown, and how the differences that they are facing are very different than other people, and how we can surround them with a community of support to kind of help them see that they too have purpose and destiny.
That's my friend Kevin Lee Branch. For nearly a decade, Kevin has been producing events for Communities in Schools, a nationwide nonprofit that helps students stay in school and thrive. When the pandemic hit, Kevin helped pivot Communities in Schools to the virtual landscape as the organization developed solutions for continuing their mission. In this episode, Kevin and I discussed the principles that guided Communities in Schools decision-making, as well as another exciting new project that Kevin is launching. Thanks for tuning in. Kevin.
What's up, man?
So good to see you.
Great to see you. Great to see you.
I think it's been, maybe 3 years or something? 4 years?
Yeah, since I've last seen you, but
yeah.
I feel like we've been knowing each other for, over 10 years now?
Right, yeah, that's crazy.
At least 10 years, yeah. But it's good to see you. I mean, we haven't been able to see each other since the pandemic,
yeah.
So great to see you. Congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
In the studio, everything looks great here, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So just for the audience listening,
Sure.
Great if you could just introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for letting me be here. I'm excited to be on the pod. For those of you who don't know this sultry sound, this voice that you're hearing in your ears, my name is Kevin Lee. I am an event producer here in the DMV area. I've been producing events for over 10 years now, ranging from all sorts of opportunities and experiences, from faith-based to social justice, conferences on education, and fundraising opportunities, weddings. Recently, unfortunately, had to produce my first funeral, which was very interesting, but running the gamut and excited about the opportunity to create experiences for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that the last couple of years, there's been a lot of pain points, a lot of learnings, a lot of innovation, particularly thinking about your work with Communities in Schools. Can you just talk a little bit about Communities in Schools and your role there, and how you kind of approached the pandemic era with events and what you learned from it?
Yeah, so Communities in Schools, for those who don't know, is the nation's largest and oldest dropout prevention organization. And our goal is to really provide a caring adult into every school in America, mostly Title I schools. Right now, we're serving 1.7 million kids across America. We're in 26 states, including the District of Columbia. And again, our goal is to provide a caring adult in every school to ensure that our students, regardless of their socioeconomic status or their background, that they all can have equal access to education. And we believe that if there is just one person in that school that is checking on that student to make sure that he or she has whatever they may need, then we can help to create a path of success for that individual and for their family. And so it sounds like it's a easy thing to do, but it takes thousands of people to make this happen. And so over the course of the past 2 years with the pandemic, our partners and our affiliates who are on the ground doing this work really, to a degree, had to think differently about how we deliver services to our students. And so we, are mostly in schools, but obviously when the pandemic happened, schools were closed. And so we shifted our focus from not just being an organization that's in school supporting students, but an org that's in the community. So, we went through kind of a rebranding and started to kind of lean into in schools and beyond, and really thinking about what it means to provide these services that we have in the school for our students, but bringing it into the community and making sure that not only the student, but their family had what they need to survive the pandemic. And, it was the disconnection for all of us, as we just mentioned. Like, I didn't see you the past 2-3 years, and, our site coordinators didn't see our students, and our network couldn't gather. We couldn't come together to do the conferences and the retreats and the symposiums and the summits that we like to do. We kind of see ourselves as one big family, CIS. And so when the family couldn't come together, it did put a strain on the work that we did. But we learned early on how to pivot. And I think, one of the biggest things for me as an event producer was knowing that not only is it enough to produce an experience in person that people can engage with, but what is it that you can do, or how can you take that same in-person experience and translate that to a virtual environment, if you will, and have people engage in the same way. And so that was really my biggest hurdle during the pandemic, but also my greatest celebration, that nothing was missed. We were not in person with each other, but we were still able to bring some of those very important in-person elements into a virtual world, so that we could still connect with each other. And one day we'll be face-to-face like we are today. But until that time comes, we have put hybrid conferences in place to make people comfortable for those who do want to gather, and versus those who may still want to be in a virtual environment. And I think that it's just a testament to the beauty of technology that we can still do some of those things that we love to do in person, but we can do that with distance in between us and still accomplish the overall goal. So long answer,
Yeah.
but
No, that's great.
it was my greatest hurdle, but it certainly was my greatest victory as well.
Nice. You can back the mic off just a touch. So getting down to like the operations of communities and schools, what was like the core part that had to really shift? Of course, you guys have the site coordinators, and then you have the whole support team for the site coordinators. Talk about the kind of background management that needed to, figure out those new solutions, and then how the events part of it, particularly with, virtual events and other things like that, how did that play into the strategy of the rebranding and the pivot?
It's about knowing the audience, right? And understanding that in the same way that we had to think differently about delivering these services to our students, we had to think differently about how do we deliver learning to our network. And it was meeting people where they were. And I joked a lot about this during the process of trying to find the right virtual platform. You could either have like the Lamborghini of virtual platforms or a really nice Lexus. And so we went for a really nice Lexus because it was something that we wanted everyone to be able to engage with and not feel that they were marginalized in the experience, whether it was from a technology standpoint or a growth standpoint. And so I didn't want to make it too much of a video game and people didn't feel included in the process, or it be too boring and not appeal and attract those creative minds. So finding that super clear balance, but then also making sure that our experiences were not just what they were always in person, right? Because we know that we're now in a virtual world, and what does it mean to deliver this content and have these really hard conversations online?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I don't know a lot of people, if we haven't really thought about that. These past 2 years, we delivered a lot of heavy content to people, whether it was real life content that they saw on the news through police killings, whether it was protest, whether it was joy of, having a new president. Whatever it may have been, we delivered really heavy content to people through the television, through their laptops every single day. And I wanted to make sure that we as communities and schools were right in that landscape. So we had those hard conversations about race and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what it means to, serve a population of students who are Black and brown, and how the differences that they are facing are very different than other people, and how we can surround them with a community of support to kind of help them see that they too have purpose and destiny. So it was, again, a lot of hard conversations, but a lot of opportunity for us to lean in to content in a way that opened up the doors of conversation for so many people who were afraid to kind of really hop into certain conversations.
I know one thing that was particularly challenging for kids in high school was the graduation experience, or even middle school, graduating from middle school. Um, and just working on having the chance to work on some of those virtual
Yeah.
graduation ceremonies with you gave me a sense of like how important those sort of affirmations were
Yeah.
and the celebration was to them. Talk a little bit about your approach to sending off the high school kids when they
Yeah.
graduate, and maybe if you had any feedback about it or saw any results from it.
It was amazing to do that. That was like the first time that we've ever done anything on that scale to
Mm-hmm.
really celebrate our graduates. And thankfully, folks like Facebook and other platforms kind of gave us a nice blueprint to follow. But it was just great to be able to acknowledge our students in a collective format, to be able to show the world the great accomplishments, whether they were transitioning from one grade to the next, or going to college, or going to trade, or whatever it may have been, just to be able to, at one moment in time, celebrate all of our students who went through just some crazy things these past 2 years, and to be able to walk across that graduation finish line, albeit virtual, and not with your classmates. Just, I think the stick-to-itiveness that a lot of those kids demonstrated, and the grit that they demonstrated. And it sounds weird to kind of use those words for high school students, because you would think that
Yeah.
they haven't lived enough life to kind of earn that badge. But I disagree. I think that our students have gone through something that history will hopefully remember them quite kindly in, because to lose connection, to lose social engagement, to have to learn from home and not knowing, for some of our students, home isn't a safe environment. Some
Right.
students' homes are their cars. Some students
Mm-hmm.
don't have food at home, and going to school is the only meal that they have, or the only person in their life, that site coordinator who encourages
Yeah.
them. So it was very important for us to not just let graduation happen, but acknowledge all of the work that the students did, and to tell them, not only do we support you through this and we congratulate you, but we're here with you from this graduation stage and beyond, and into your life, to make sure that you are able to succeed and do the things that you want to do. And so those types of moments, Ryder, are just beautiful. I mean, I don't have kids, but it's like one of those moments where you get so proud to see like a student that may have like struggled through
Yeah.
just to get to that graduation finish line. Or you hear a story from a site coordinator about how they work so closely with the student, and then you see that kid in that graduation cap, and it just really brings joy to your heart, and it warms you to know that our country hopefully is going to be in a better position because of students like this that have walked across the graduation finish line. So it's something that is pretty priceless, and I love that we do it, and I hope that our students and our site coordinators and our supporters like can feel the love behind what it really means for us to produce those kinds of events, because that's really out of all the things that we do a lot of great things, but that's one of the things that
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed producing these past 2 years.
Yeah. You mentioned people not necessarily having, good access to online resources from home, or maybe the home isn't a safe space. Can you talk through some of those challenges? And did you feel like that was a real barrier for people who couldn't participate at all, or was the technology like figured out enough since they were doing Zoom classes that they could also participate in this kind of thing? Or
Yeah, I think for our students, certainly each school district rolled out remote engagement differently. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that our students didn't have to choose between bread and broadband, right?
Yeah.
That should never be a choice. And so being able to work with our local affiliates, they're working with their local partners to ensure that our students had access to laptops, access to Wi-Fi in the home if they didn't have it. And then for our network, we wanted to make sure that, everyone was in a financial pinch. So, we waived, all the registration fees for the conference, and to make it affordable for people to come. And what we saw was that when we had our online conference, we doubled our registration for those conferences, that people really wanted to get this content. They wanted to learn. They wanted to hear about the work that we were doing and how they could get involved to support us. And so I think it's a matter of not just for us, but for any organization that is serving a marginalized population, it's important that you are able to meet them where they are, because we deliver a lot of content, and sometimes it's not that people don't want to engage with it. It might just be that the container is unreachable for them. And so you may have to think about different ways to deploy that content to make it more inclusive so that everyone can partake in what you're offering.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I definitely get the feeling that the hybrid event model is sort of here to stay.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think people, I mean, we've always been people of options, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you turn your TV on and you
Right.
can look at your channel guide and there's like thousands of channels. I mean, I probably just watch the same 5 over and over again, but I mean, I have the option to change the channel if I want. And so we should give people the option to come in person or to be remote, whether it's out of safety or just your personal comfort. And I think that, yeah, you're right. It is here to stay. And if you're able to do it in a way that you can tie both of those communities together and create an experience that both stakeholders, whether in person or virtual, can engage and feel included in the process, then you've done something really well.
Yeah, and there seems to be a number of platforms that are like developing ways for that to be a more interactive experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, just one idea I was toying with was like how, let's say if you're doing a fundraiser, how you could maybe sort of challenge the virtual audience to compete against the in-person audience.
Yeah.
So kind of like, you know, making that competition of who can raise more money at the fundraiser.
Yes. Is it the online or is it the in-person?
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite things during the pandemic was to play virtual scavenger hunt. I don't know if you've ever played that before. Well, you should still play it. Get a group of friends together, get on Zoom and do it. And basically what you do is you hold up an object, just a random object in your home. You can hold up 6 or 8 objects, and you give people like 30 seconds to go and grab each one. And it's so cool just to watch people run around their house to try to find these objects that may or may not even be in their home. But I found that to be quite fun during the pandemic.
So I'm curious how, because you mentioned that, you know, of course the site coordinators are there in the school, and that's such a big part of communities and schools, is the sort of in-person person who's not a teacher, who's not a principal or a school administrator, even a guidance counselor. They play this sort of separate role. How did that role change when being in person wasn't an option? What did they focus on or spend their time doing?
Yeah, our site coordinators continued their work. And we also recently deployed what we call re-engagement coordinators, because it was important for us to acknowledge that, and I'm sure you've heard this, there were 3 million plus students that went missing during the pandemic that did not engage in remote, school.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
3 million?
3 million and counting.
Wow.
And so we had a big responsibility to try to find those students, to knock on doors, to see, you know, have you seen this student? Do you know where this student lives?
Wow.
And so our re-engagement coordinators really took to the streets, if you will, and got into the community to find these children and to get them the resources that they needed so that they could log online. Again, is it a laptop? Is it Wi-Fi? Is it electricity? Do you need food? What is it that we can do to ensure that you can get the learning that you need, albeit remote? And our site coordinators, same. You know, I mean, I can tell you countless stories of people delivering groceries and checking up on families and students, because again, the work was not just about, and it's never really just been about that student. The student represents one piece of it. It's family, right? And it's a site coordinator helping the student and the family. If the student succeeds, the family succeeds. And so we had to, again, think about it, not just how we can help in school, but how can we go beyond? How can we get into the community and make sure that our students and families have everything that they need?
So in a way, it's almost like there was a higher demand for the number of site coordinators just to cover that much ground.
100%.
And I mean, what would be like a typical caseload that they would have, like a couple hundred or whole
so
school?
each student's going to be, each site coordinator in school is going to be different. I've heard stories of caseloads of 20 to 40 to 100 and sometimes more. But one of the things to note about our site coordinators is, while there are certain students in that school that are on their caseload that are managed, if you will, by communities and schools, we support the entire school. And so while a site coordinator may have 20 or 30 students on their caseload, everyone in that school may know this, CIS site coordinator, and they may come to him or her for advice or support throughout the course of the day or the course of their school year. And that site coordinator is always there with an open door to support not only the students that they case manage, but any student that has any concern or issue, or even wanting to know more about communities and schools and how they might be able to be a part of the program.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it because on our last I was thinking about this because in our last collaboration, we had the opportunity to document a pretty historic moment.
Yeah.
If maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and just thinking about, the expansion of communities and schools and new direction, and what it means to the students, what it means to the site coordinators to have this sort of significant impact or donation made.
It was a beautiful production, and I just have to pause and just give a big shout out to you and your team for really helping us create that moment and record that moment. Our chairwoman, Elaine Nguyen, mentions in the piece that, it's important to have cameras around for these types of moments so you can document this, because otherwise you're just going to be telling this story about what happened. So thank you for helping us document this and put it in our archival history.
Absolutely.
Mackenzie Scott gave us a lot of money. And so it was time for us to share that announcement with our founder. Our CEO had gotten a call from the people who represent Ms. Scott, just saying that they wanted to give us a donation, and he thought it was a scam. And so when he finally had a conversation with her people and they, walked him through exactly what this gift would mean, it would be one of the largest gifts that we've received for not only our national office, but for our network, and that Mackenzie Scott and her team did research on our affiliate network and selected 40 affiliates to also receive gifts. And I believe no gift was less than $1 million. Wow. And each affiliate needed these gifts. It was like this unknown blessing, if you will, this windfall that just kind of, just kind of came to them. And they all have done different things with it. And so it was something that we wanted to surprise our founder, Bill Milliken, with the news. He founded this organization over 40 years ago, and now the hem of the organization is being ran by Ray Saldana, who is a former alumni of our program. And so it's just a beautiful story of success, and how you can start with CIS as a student, and then you can become the CEO of the program that has helped you to become who you are today. And so in that room, we had Elaine Nguyen, Ray Saldana, Bill Milliken, and Ray barely kind of is able to break the news to Bill because he's excited and emotional. Elaine is just like, just tell him already. And then, Ray hands Bill a piece of paper with a very large amount on it that he announces would be the largest gift that we had received in the history of the organization, of $131 million. And as you know, because you've seen the documentary, Bill just gets crazy. He's filled with emotion, and he throws up the paper, and he just cannot believe that we have this gift. And really what he couldn't believe, and I believe he says this, is that they know about us. And he kind of says this, kind of goes through this story of not only do they know about us, but how do they know about us? And so just knowing that people are looking at your work, they're watching what you're doing, they understand your model, they believe in your mission, was really what, for me, being in that space really touched him the most. And I think that is what really, of course, the amount is an amazing amount of money, but I think what really brought him to tears was the idea that someone sees and believes in what you're doing, and the money is just validation of that. Yeah. And so it was a beautiful moment. Again, thank y'all for helping us document that.
Yeah, that was our pleasure. Yeah. Our pleasure completely. So amazing. So how, in broad strokes, is that money being deployed? Is it kind of being spread out? Are you developing specific programs for it, or is it just going to the general operations you currently are doing?
That's a great question. I can't answer that.
Yeah, I figured it'd be tough to.
I can't answer that. But what I can say is that our chiefs and our senior leadership team, we're currently in a strategic plan process.
Right.
And we're thinking a lot about how we can utilize these funds to continue the work of communities and schools. Yeah. And of course, help, as many students and families as we can. Our goal is to be in every Title I school in America. And that's a lot of work. And you can't do that without money and without visibility. So this has helped us along that journey.
Yeah, well, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. I think so, right?
To, trying to figure out, how to raise the next dollar, which I know is always an ongoing thing, regardless.
Yeah.
Well, that's all super exciting. I really look forward to seeing what comes next from communities and schools and how you guys develop and grow the organization. What's the message for students? Like, how should they be seeing themselves and learning about this history and processing all these experiences? I know a lot of them, thinking high school age or younger, they probably are really confused, right, by a lot of stuff. They have some sense of what's going on, and I mean, just putting yourself in their shoes, like what's the message? Like, how should they be thinking about their futures and their realities?
They should be honest about it. They should be honest about their feelings. They should be honest about what they like, what they don't like, what they know, what they don't know. And, one of the things that I think I would tell my younger self is that be a part of your journey and don't just be, a bystander, but be an active participant. You are the main character of your story. And so when you take control of your environment, then you can change your story. You can change your outcome, but you have to be an active participant. And that is what I would tell our students. That's what I told my niece. Lean into your life. Create the life that you want to live and ask as many questions as you can along the way, because you're only just creating history. And that's all it is. It's history, it's stories, it's chapters that go into your book. Some of them will be great and some of them will suck. But it's when you get to that final chapter and you can get to your happily ever after, and you can declare with as much strength and might that you went through it, but you're better because of it. And that is what I hope, not just our students, but even us adults, I hope we can get that, because some of us still are not living as active participants in our lives. And I think that if the pandemic didn't do anything for any of us, it should have done at least that one thing to show us that life is super short and you never know when it might be your time. And so you must live life to the fullest, and you must love and you must lean in to everything that you want, because you just never know. And I think that as long as we continue to allow our children to have those wide eyes and those big ears and even the big mouths, because our kids have a lot to say. They've seen a lot, they've experienced a lot, and it's not right to just let them be, the future of tomorrow, but the future of right now. And we need to hear from them, but we need to give them space to grow and to lean into who they are so that they can be better for all of us.
Yeah, I love that idea of being like the main character in your own story, being an active participant. I heard another quote recently. I think it was something like, have respect for yourself because prior versions of yourself worked really hard to get you to where you are now.
I love that. I love that.
Have respect for this current iteration, knowing the hard work that went in before.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think that's super true, and I think that's the way that I look at my life as well. It's like, I'm going to honor this person because I know what that person was, and I know who I want to be. So while I'm in the middle of those two experiences, the best that I can do is really celebrate this person to make sure that he is living up to who he said he would be. I think it's really life now. I think as I think about it, whether you get older or whatever it is that happens to us, it just clicks at a certain point, and we realize that it's not about any other things that we thought it was, life that is, but it's really about all the things that we have yet to know and to explore and to find out. And the more curious we are, regardless of our age, the better our life experience will be, the more questions we ask, So I'm just really been leaning into that, like truly like what it means to be like a life learner and not just of like books, which is great, but of life. Yeah.
No, I've noticed that too. Like the older I get, the more curious I am about other things.
Yeah.
particularly if it was something that I maybe learned in high school, but I wasn't ready to absorb it
Yeah.
at that point. Like
Yeah.
it didn't click because I was worried about all the other things that you're, thinking about in high school and you're 17 or 16 in your own mind. And as an adult, you just, I don't know, have far more respect for certain things and learning about history or understanding things in a different way.
Yep. And also just realizing that I don't know it all, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember being a kid and thinking that I knew every single thing. And I get older and I'm like, you actually don't know anything. You know nothing about nothing.
Yep, that is very true. You mentioned the return to live events earlier, and I also recently went to a couple of live events over the past couple of days. One for mental health awareness at the White House, the other one at the Mayweather Hotel. It was a celebration of the 10-year anniversary of another client we have that works on issues surrounding caregivers, and the caregivers specifically of veterans.
Okay.
So both great causes,
Nice.
And it was the biggest crowds I had been in a very long time.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a magic to it when you see all of the sort of custom branding, the thought that went into putting the whole event on, and just that ability to, have the chance to meeting people you wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yep.
It's, I miss it a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited that it seems to be coming back a little bit.
Fingers crossed.
Knock on wood. But yeah, it's really
it's coming.
special.
I think it's coming back. I think because people want to gather, and event professionals like me, we want to create experiences for folks because that's what it's about. Every event that we do, whether it's hybrid, in person, virtual, it's about the experience. What can we teach you, and what can we? What's the call to action for you? What can you leave wanting to tell other people about? What did you experience? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you learn? And so being able to do that, I mean, that's my bread and butter. That's what I love to do every day, creating these experiences. And when we can do them in person, that totally makes it worthwhile. So I know the industry is ready. We've been ready. We'll see how things continue throughout the rest of the year, but our event professionals, our producers, our stagehands, our talent, everyone, whether you're on the front side of the camera or the back side of the camera, we're all ready. We're ready to get back together. We're ready to get life back on the road and do things that we used to do that brought us joy in person. And I think that time is happening. We're smart about it. We know what to do. And so I think it's time to get back together and get back to creating experiences with people. I
love that way of thinking of it, of creating experiences. And it makes me think actually of like a recent, I think it's like a travel.com or hotels.com or Expedia commercial where like, the spokesperson is saying, you'll never run out of things to buy. Yeah. But are you really going to like remember that flat screen TV you got, or are you going to remember the trip that you took?
Exactly.
And then also I think that something maybe a little bit underrated, but I'm realizing now because I attended a virtual conference a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And the problem there, I think, part of it was my own scheduling, but I had a million of other things to do while I'm sitting at my desk. And so that virtual event, it just like ends up on the back burner, unless there's something where I'm on camera, like meeting someone. Yeah. It's tough to, listen to someone's speech or whatever it is and give your undivided attention while you're in a place where you're kind of inherently multitasking at your computer. Yeah. And so the live events really is that opportunity to get people's like undivided attention.
That's right.
And that's such a huge difference.
It is. And it's also knowing your audience. So like if you are someone that has to produce this hybrid event, like understanding the amount of content you're giving people, because folks are not, it's not the thick of the pandemic, right? Like when people are just locked in and they don't have any other choice but to consume it, people can now go outside, they have other options. And so you have to make sure you're delivering content that is, as one of my friends would say, snackable content, something that people can kind of just grab, they can chew on, they can enjoy it, they can like it, share it, comment, and keep moving. And I think that's important, not just for the social media age that we live in, but also when you think about event production. How can I deliver this content that's engaging to you so you're here with us, but I'm not overwhelming you in the process?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. And I certainly don't mean to hate on the virtual event I attended, but it's certainly nothing like
being in person.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just there's something so different about it.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's just the idea of the energy you feel when you're in the room with people who are there, like-minded people who are there for the same reason that you're there. I'm heading to Puerto Rico on Sunday to go to an event professional conference, and I'm really excited because I haven't been around a lot of these folks in a while, and I'm really open and ready to see new and exciting ways to kind of produce events and just hear stories about what people have been doing for the past 2 years in terms of their virtual events and hybrid events. And so it's opportunities like that that really provide a chance for, the idea of iron sharpening iron. And we can have a chance to just share those best practices and testimonies about what worked, what didn't work, and yell about the things that made us pull our hair out, but also celebrate the things that, were awesome for us. And so I think that it's going to be a great opportunity in Puerto Rico to kind of just do that with event professionals and just let our hair down and just see what the future of this industry might be. So,
well, I have a lot of empathy for whoever's producing that event because their work is going to be under a real microscope.
I would say so. I would say if you get a planner or a professional event person in a room, definitely know that they're looking at something and they're taking mental notes about everything.
Well, this has been really great, Kevin. Anything else you wanted to talk about or?
No, I think this was awesome. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. It's a great space. Congratulations. It's good to do this. We've talked about this a few times, so I'm glad to be able to be in person and do this with you. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.